Have you ever asked yourself, why am I so confused about operations within my business? Today, I'm going to share with you the 5 M's or the 5 aspects within your business that are going to need your attention if you are going to scale up, if you are going to grow your business. I'm going to show you what I do and what I think about that I know is going to help you build a better business. Enjoy.
How old are you going to be before you start to experience life like you want it? I want to tell you right now, whether you like it or not, there is a better way to do business.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Business for Builders podcast. My name is Max, I'm your host. Welcome to you if you're on YouTube. Great to have you along for the ride. We're getting close to the end of the year. We need to start thinking about what we're doing next year. Maybe we've got to think about what we didn't do so well this year and sort of figure out how we're going to change that. But before we get started, like and subscribe, all that kind of good stuff. Get across to Business for Builders on Facebook, and also check out Business for Builders VIP. That's a private group. Answer the 3 questions, I'll let you in. If you're a good sort. Okay, what's the other thing? Want to email me? max@elitebusinessadvisory.com. I'm relatively accessible. I'll get back to you as promptly as I can. If you want to chat with me and sit with me about business coaching, and I know that's a little bit of a, well, what's that about? That's a good opportunity to have a chat. I'll generally show you what I would do with your business if we kicked off. And then you sort of start going, all right, so my goal is to build awareness, give you a complimentary coaching session, give you 30 minutes, a bit of a strategy around, looking at what you're doing well and, how I would move the business forward if it was my business. So don't be shy, get across there. We've got different coaching levels, for everybody. Right now, this is free, golden. You can go on elitebusinessadvisory.com, the Silver Bullet Academy, $65 a month US. And it's probably $10,000 worth of information, right? Great way to self-educate, get started, look at some of the spreadsheets, et cetera, et cetera. And then you could move up to more of a coaching on demand approach. That's slightly different, where you've got, similar kind of investment required, but you can exercise that over 3 months rather than just being in the 1 month. And then you can go full tilt into business development and business coaching. And that is where we get together for an hour a week. Which has definitely benefited a lot of builders that I've worked with over the last couple of years. So, all right, today's episode. I think I alluded to this on the last episode. I talked about the 5 M's. I'll tell you straight up, I stole them completely off Alex Hormozy. And I respect that guy a lot because I think I bumped into him firstly on TikTok. I'm like, who's this muscle-bound, friggin' long-haired lout, right? And couldn't possibly have anything to say. And I found myself getting hooked on his information, and then obviously I'd transfer across to YouTube. So, and then furthermore, I ended up purchasing this audio book, and maybe you can't see it. How's that? Okay. We all want more leads, don't we? Notice it's got little post-it notes hanging out the side. I'm a student. I love writing on the books. And more recently, $100 million money models. Okay, I just needed to understand, and I respect him as a business developer. He's a monster, and it's always good to just hear his podcasts and things like that. So, what I'm going to share with you today, I'm like, this makes sense. I reckon builders could have a use for this, and I quickly just kind of transpose the information from a very general business sense, maybe across into a builder sense, and hopefully that will resonate. So, really, what I'm doing is it's more of a thought-provoking session that we're going to do here as opposed to let's go and be tactical about this, right? So as you can see on the board behind me, screenshot that, bang, got it. Right, marketing, metrics, model, money, manpower. Okay, everything that any business in the world has got to be concerned about. And what I want to do is sort of help you figure out how I would see those different aspects of the business and what I'm doing in my building company that you might be able to take away and use yourself. If you don't market consistently, number one, you don't control the quality or the quantity of your leads, right? We don't want to just, and I think this has come to the fore. I saw something on Facebook the other day, one of these contractor corner type deals. And, there was one guy there that was asking about, and we're in the west coast of Canada. I think he had a business associate or a friend or a family member that was coming across and wanted to get involved in renovations, etc., and remodeling in the Kelowna area of British Columbia. And I love to read all of those comments. And, there was one particular that stood out. And he said, my husband's been involved in this area doing this for 35 years, and this year was the worst year of his life. And yet he said, we've got such a good following. We've had great clients in the past. just couldn't get traction this year. And that was just one of 50 comments. Okay. And so I would say that if I went and interviewed each of those people on that comment, oh yeah, it's been pretty ordinary, there might have been one or two that kind of had it by the you-know-whats and was kind of on it and knew what he was doing. I'm like, that character has got something that's very unique and different, purely off the back of education and execution, as opposed to everyone else just running around going, oh, Max, I don't need to do marketing. I've got good referrals. Until the market takes a shit and all of a sudden now all of that referral base goes away, and because it's so narrow, it's not good enough to sustain you for 12 months. Now, understand this. If you do the marketing like we're talking about, and you've got the organic and you've got good branding and you follow what's going on and you engage with your audience, referrals are a cherry on top, okay? But you've got to continue. So currently we're running Google ads, my business, Jed's business, right? We're doing a big job and we're doing a few small jobs as well. But the one big job comes through referral. So I'm not saying it doesn't work. What's my customer acquisition job on that cost on that job? Well, it was zero, because I got given this guy's number and I rang him and started to have a conversation. How's it going, mate? I hear you want to do a second story edition. That's exciting. That's the first phone call. And then 9 months later, 9 months, folks, 9. Can you stay alive long enough to get to a 9-month deal? 9 months, we finally go to contract. It may have even been a little bit more. I need to check my timestamps on my phone. Right. So anyway, before I go on, I talked about the book, so we're good. Right. So what we end up having is hills and valleys in our lead generation. We don't have consistency. So if you didn't get the last episode, after this one, pop back there and have a listen, because I talk about a qualification scorecard. Now it's mostly around new leads coming in. Okay. You could probably develop a scorecard as well for pretty much anything else in your business. But what you'll find yourself is getting buried by scorecards. So be careful not to do that. But what we've got to have some way and some method of measurement where we know how many leads have come in. Okay. What's our conversion rate from lead to job and then from estimate to job, right? If we don't have a good understanding of the outcomes of the marketing, we're just throwing money at agencies going, okay, spend some money on SEO, do some Google AdWords, and yeah, let's even sponsor some ads on Facebook. And you don't know, see, I'm not an SEO genius. I'm not a Google Ads genius. I'm not a social media marketing, brand awareness, and advertising genius. But what I do is I understand the numbers. And so that's the difference. When I sit down, I've shared this before, when I sit down with marketing agents and I go, what is an appropriate statistic for a business like me, being a general contractor or builder? What is the appropriate rate? What's my conversion rate look like off the back of your marketing? What would be my customer acquisition cost? What do you think my cost per lead is? What's my average return on investment amount? And they just look at me like I've got horns and claws. Like, they just like, I haven't even heard of those. And yet they're selling marketing space to me. See, you don't have to be the guru, the technician. You've just got to understand how to measure, right? And that brings me to the next thing, is the metrics, okay? If you don't measure it, you can't manage it, and you're flying blind. And you know what? I don't think most guys wake up in the morning and go, as it relates to marketing or running my business, I'm just going to fly blind. I'm just going to kind of just crank the thing into drive and put my foot on the gas and go and just close my eyes. I don't think we intentionally do that, because that's stupid. But unfortunately, by default, because we get distracted, because why, we're technicians and we go over there and we knock nails into wood and we build shit and we do a great job. It's just, the problem is with that, who's paying attention to the business side? And that's where we fall down. And I've had this. I've stood in clients' living rooms and they've done renovations 5 years ago. And I said, why didn't you go back to old mate? Well, he delivered a really good product, but there were some issues around ongoing financial reporting and the final price and some of the blind sides that we got last minute and things like that. There was not much accountability as it relates to financials. See, that's a technician doing technician shit who thinks that I'll do this finance stuff in the afternoon or of an evening or of a weekend and never gets around to it. And so the metrics component of the business, most guys don't know what they don't know. Okay, when I sit down and I look at our activity key metrics and I look at our cash flow forecasts and I look at our project start schedules, because they all marry together. First thing we do is we set up our basic metrics. Then we go and look at our cash flow forecaster. Every time a lead comes in, it's like, okay, if I was to close this deal in 2 months from now, that would be the deposit amount because this is what I think the estimated cost to build would be. This would be the sales price, 100 grand, whatever. And I think, right, we're going to get 20%, but it's going to take me 60 days to close that deal. Bang, goes in there. Fixed price goes in there. Because what I'm looking at is telling me what's my billables per month 6 months from now. And then I take that amount, I look at my other spreadsheet or my other sheet inside of that spreadsheet, and I look at my break-even point, and that's where I go, okay, so I'm forecasting 6 months out, and even if I just close 20% of these deals, because remember, you're going to have a lot of clients in that cash flow forecast that are going to make a really big number here. Now, odds on is if you're doing that 6 months in advance, you're probably going to close somewhere between 15 and 30%. Depending on the nature of the lead, okay? But if we use round numbers and we said 20%, you can look at that and go, okay, 20% of $1 million, because that's potentially what's going to happen in that month, it's 200 grand. Right, my break-even point's 150. Mazel tov. Means I add 12% to that, so I maintain a 10% net profit throughout all the jobs and my delivery's good and I hit my budget, then I'll be on track for a 10% net profit, and I should end up with net retained earnings of around 8% of that. Metrics. The pain point is most GCs make decisions on gut feeling, not data. And that leads to underpricing, overcommitting, and chaos. And what is chaos? Chaos is a natural byproduct of disorder. So if you've got disorder in your metrics, you're going to have a chaotic business. And when I sit down with new EBA clients or prospective EBA clients, sometimes I can't help them. I'm like, you know what? I'm a coach. I'm not a paramedic. You're bleeding out right now and there's not a thing I can do about it. I'm sorry. And that's the reality, okay? Because 50% of builders 5 years from now will go broke, will be out of the business. Of the 50% that remain 5 years after that, only 50% of them will be there. So from today, in 10 years, there'll only be 25% of the builders that kick off today still in the business. And who knows how well they're doing, but if they've been around for 10 years, they might be doing all right. Who knows? Right, so we're guessing, we're not measuring. So guys and gals, figure out, you've got to, and here's the thing, what you don't know, you don't friggin' know. And the ignorance is supreme. I get why you say what you do because I did that. But I'm telling you, you are paying the ignorant tax right now. It's just, mate, it's just the way it is. Because the guy who went ahead of us from 10 years, who was 10 years ahead of us, he didn't know where he was going. You've ever driven through that set of lights and you're like, was that a red light or a green light? And then I look in my rear view, depending on which country you're in, I look in my rear vision mirror and the guy behind me come along and I'm like, well, it must have been green because he followed me through. You know what the guy behind you saying? Well, I didn't see what color that light is, but that guy went through and I was right behind him, so it must have been okay. See, nobody knows what the is going on. There's no control. So there's disorder, which leads to chaos. Time out. Stop. You've just got to slow down. You've got to jettison some of the stress and some of the weight. This is how I talk in a coaching session. It's like, I can't make ham out of pig shit, right? And it doesn't just take 2 minutes. You come to me 5, 7, 10 years later and you expect me to roll this shit out and fix it in 2 to 3 months? It's impossible, dude. Because the biggest problem is what's in your head, the 6 inches between your ears. That's where the challenge is, right? You look in the mirror and go, there's the reason why my business is not working. And if you're on the podcast, you're missing out on some pretty good theatrics here. I'm really turning it up for this episode, right? And so it's really about you learning and then earning. You've got to have the education first, and then you can move into the realm where you start monetizing or profiting from that education. Let's get on with it. Right. Model, the third M. Thanks to Alex Hormozy. Shout out. Hopefully old mate's going to give me a critique and watch the episode. Who knows? Right, the third M is model. Your business model is either supporting your growth or it's sabotaging your growth. Now, many builders operate without a defined sales model or pricing model or delivery model or all the above. And this leads to inconsistent margins and ultimately it ends up in burnout. And really what burnout is I have just got to the end of my tether, and you know why that is because you kept doing the same thing expecting a different result. And most of the time, you kept doing what you're doing because you thought you were doing the right thing, because that is what everybody else is doing. And yet they're all out there going, well, it's not working, but everyone else is doing it, so it must be okay. Okay, stop. Just stop, okay? It's just, you've got to start thinking like a business person, right? I've got to challenge myself every day. I get caught up because I'm no different to you. It's like a drug. I was on site yesterday. Oh, like, give me a nail gun. Where's the drop saw? Where's the chop saw? Let me cut shit. Let me measure some stuff. Why? Because my security lays in that. It's what I did to feed my family for almost a quarter of a century before I got a builder's license. I was very good at that. I was very organized. I had good rapport with building supervisors and superintendents. They wanted me to come back. And, at one stage I had 15 guys, all working on, 5 projects, 3-man crews, 5 3s are 15. Yeah, I got my math. I got it. All the way from the sunny coast to Brisbane down to, Gold Coast. So it's just like, we've got to make sure that the model that we're using is going to help us serve our ultimate purpose of more profit, better lifestyle. Now, I was always a big advocate of fixed price, you know that. But I tell you what, the last 18 months, pursuant to the feedback that I just got from, the good old Facebook marketplace, I had to make a pivot because I just realized that I'd spent too much time quoting jobs on fixed price. And because of the nature of the market, it was very depressed. Guys are out there doing jobs for nothing. So what I had to do is pivot and go onto a cost plus or a time and materials model to keep a little bit of cash flow going. Then we landed the bigger job. Right, now we've got some breathing room. Now we're capitalized and we can start to think about, right, what is the model that we're going to use? Then it goes back to the inquiry scorecard, where now I'm going to be a lot more pickier because I have the alternative fixed price time and materials depending on what they want. And then we can move them into a contract fairly expeditiously if they want to do time and materials. If they want to go and make all the selections, we can go on a fixed price. So either way, what you've got to make sure is that you're getting the net profit there of 10%. Now, some guys will say between 8 and 15 is acceptable. I kind of okay. I wouldn't want to go less than 8 unless you're doing 10 million and above. Then it changes the game. The what do you call it? The size of that business is going to allow you to operate on smaller. The economies of scale is the term that I was looking for. Economies of scale at 10 million and above is different to you if you're like me at the moment and doing 1.5 million in the swamp. Okay, right. So essentially, you might not have, like, if you've got no system for selling or pricing, you're going to be in trouble. Have you got a system for selling and pricing? Because if you don't have a typical go-to, then what you're going to do is you're going to do it differently every time. Therefore, you're not going to be able to gauge the response or the outcome because the setup is changed every time. When we're racing go-karts, we change one thing. We put 2 more teeth on the sprocket, on the back sprocket. We maybe drop the PSI in the tires. We might change the settings on the carb or something like that, but we don't do them all at once. We want to make sure the ambient temperature hasn't changed. And 1 minute we're testing in the dry, next thing there's a little bit of drizzle on the track. Obviously the dynamics are going to change, therefore the setup's got to change. You've got to know that your delivery system or your program or your structure is predictable so that the outcomes can be measured based on the X factor in the middle, which is the inquiry. Okay, got to have a system. Number 4, money. Right, I mentioned before that, we're on the bones of our ass and, we're all getting worried about where the market's going to go. And I'm saying to Jed, hold your breath. I think I can get this deal over the line. And then we finally do. And then I pivot immediately. I'm like, right, I need to go and get some smaller jobs on time and materials to keep our boys busy whilst we've got other trades on this bigger job, right? And so the reason I was able to pivot slightly is because I knew that our cash flow forecast was okay to give me some creative license to go and do that. Now, cash flow isn't about how much you make. It's about how well you manage that which comes in, right? And this is why. Go back, and this is why there's a massive overlap between these. Go back to measurements and metrics. Because if you're making $1 million, but you're spending $1,000,001, it's not going to work out for you. Right, so often you don't allocate vendor funds, taxes, or profit properly. Constant financial stress and fear exists. See, fear is just because you don't know. I was chatting with a client on text message this morning, and I was explaining, he said, how's it going? How's things tracking? I said, mate, it's good, but I think in the next couple of weeks, there's a good chance we're going to lose a week on our scheduled program. And I had to explain to him why, and I had to explain to him some of the dynamics within that. And I said, this is not a guaranteed. It's just it's gonna create a bit of a pinch point on site where we possibly are going to have more trades on site that we need. Now, we're going to take a run at that, see if we can manage it, because if we can get through that pinch point and we can navigate through that, and we're right up against Christmas, so it's tough, right? Then we may be able to dodge a bullet in that regard. Okay, and so this is the high-level communication I'm having with clients about the situation. But at the end of the day, that job has given us some significant breathing space, and it's removed the financial stress on us temporarily. But what I know as a guy that runs the office and also runs sales, the clock's ticking, dude. Clock's ticking. And this is where I go back to when we talk about money too, guys, like every time a check comes in, the first thing I do, if my transfer limit will allow me to do it on the day, is immediately GST goes into a tax account. Don't even want to know it's there, because I know, I'm a tax collector. They don't pay me a commission. They don't give me a kickback, scum of the earth, whatever. But I've got to do that, because if I don't, I'm going to kill my business if I can't fulfill my obligations in that regard. The other thing is a vendor account. That's always wise too. If 100 grand comes in, and let's say 75% of that 100 grand is for vendors, then I'll put that aside. Or I might put the 25% into an operations account and leave that big one as the vendor account where most of the money sits. Get your own advice, guys and gals. But remember, what I said at the start was this is more of a thought-provoking introduction to build awareness around the 5 M's within, or the 5 aspects of your business, okay? You need to pay attention. Right, last thing, you can't scale a business when you are the business, right? Most of you guys, we wait too long. I wait too long to hire. I'm currently interviewing EAs, executive assistants, because I want to start jettisoning and delegating some of the work. Now, when I'm delegating, the first thing I'm doing is, if I was to delegate a person today, do they have a system? Do I have an onboarding program? Do I have a training program? Do I have an accountability program? Do I have SOPs? Okay, right? That's what you should be thinking. So don't just go, I'm going to hire someone and then through osmosis, we're going to figure this out. Because you never do, and you waste time and you waste money because you can't drop them into a system and go. Like when the flag drops, when they are on your payroll on Monday morning at 8 a.m., bang, now they're costing you money. Are you getting a return on your investment, or are you not? So then what that does, if you wait too long to hire, you're going to be overwhelmed. You're going to be doing everything on your own, and you've got no capacity to grow. And that is the piece de resistance. If you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go with a team. But then that opens a Pandora's box. It's like, well, then I've got to deal with people, Max, and and it's easier to deal with people if you've got a recruitment scorecard. How about that? What am I looking for? What is my process? What's my structure? I don't even know what onboarding looks like. I don't even know what initial training looks like. I don't even know what an SOP looks like. I actually don't even know what SOP stands for. In brackets, standard operating procedures. You're doing everything yourself. Not cool. Okay, so I'm just going to finish with this. What you need to understand is that marketing is intertwined with metrics, which is intertwined with your business models, whatever they are, which is intertwined with money, which is intertwined with your ability to deliver and your manpower. And then unfortunately, folks, that is the shit that you need to know all about. And if you do not blame the industry, do not blame the marketplace, do not blame inflation and interest rates and all the other horse shit that people just love to blame. Don't blame that. Blame your lack of education and ignorance because you don't understand each of these parts of your business. Now, screenshot that again and go into AI and start learning. If you want to escalate your success, I would recommend business coaching because I'm old and washed up And I've made more mistakes probably than you have. And you can get to success a little quicker so long as you don't sit there and frigging argue with me. Don't waste your time. Don't waste my time. Certainly don't waste your money. What you don't know, you don't know. Marketing metrics, model, money, manpower. Think about it, figure it out, make some smart decisions in your head, and then as you move forward, start to make smart choices that map to that decision that you made about the direction that you want to go, about the outcome you want to have. Start thinking about where you want to be 12 months from now. Start thinking about, because when we sit down, I'm going to figure out pretty quick whether you are just blindly walking forward in your business and you have no clue whether your next step is going to be off the edge or whether it's going to be into the land of milk and honey. But it's not going to take me long. If there's no clarity in your mind about all aspects of your business, but specifically where you want to take your business, what you want your business to look like. If you haven't got something in your mind that's clear, that's documented, I can walk across to my desk and get my vision board. This is the houses that I want to live in. This is the cars that I want to live. This is the holidays I want to go on. Like, this is the fun I want to have. It's there. It's right there. It's in my office. It's right. My vision board is right there. And if I'm feeling like I'm beat up and I'm like, mate, I've got no clarity, I'm feeling confused, the first thing I'll do is I'll go back and I'll just think about, right, what is it I'm going after? Okay, if I'm going to achieve that goal, then I need to, I'm going to triage all the stuff in my notepad and I'm going to figure out a way through this. And part of that way through, I would just about guarantee is going to consist of getting help from somebody who is further in front of you. Hope that all makes sense to you guys. I hope that's put a stone in your shoe. It's an introduction to the 5 M's within your business, the aspects within your business that need your attention. Go build a kick-ass business, and I will see you in the next episode. Cheers.